This is kind of heartbreaking to me. I talk to a lot of people that took Social Security at age 62 because their buddy told them, you got to take it, it's going away. Long and short, it turns out it was a disastrous decision. Only about 8% of people actually optimize, and the people that don't, on average, leave about $111,000 on the table over their lifetime.
Welcome back to the ROCC Pod. I am John Gay from Jag Podcast Productions.
And I'm Lisa Bibby, your realtor with Century 21 Northland.
Today's guest is Jim Komoroski from the M1 Agency. Welcome, Jim. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Your first podcast, you told us offline, so I promise we'll make this gentle.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous for some reason, but we'll be fine, I think.
I will tell you, I do this professionally. I have hosted hundreds of podcasts. I am so much more nervous as a guest than a host, so don't worry. We'll take good care of you.
Good. Looking forward to it.
So we have a lot of crossover to start. Your wife's name shares a name with my co-host, Lisa.
Yes.
No kids, 2 small dogs. And I love this. In your notes you sent us, you called yourself a feral Gen Xer. We've all seen the memes about how Gen Xers are feral and had to fend for themselves. Yeah, Lisa's a Gen Xer. My wife is a Gen Xer. I am a borderline Gen Xer millennial. So tell us about being a feral Gen Xer before we start.
This is why it's funny. My wife and I don't have kids. I'm an only child. She was 8 years younger than her older brothers, so a huge gap. So she was basically an only child. And they were really in the, all my older cousins, you had these older, cool cousins that introduced you to music and whatever. And they were of that generation, like the early 70s, like where they were really on their own. Well, we were in that, both in that late 70s, early 80s group where, I had parents, but they were never around. They were at work, right?
I had parents, he says.
Right. I always joke with my mom that I was raised by Aunt Comcast and Uncle Sony. So,
Oh my gosh, you're the best.
She goes over like a lead balloon sometimes. But, hey, when I say feral, we find ways on our own to figure stuff out. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about our generation. We're the ones people look to. We're the ones that, we'll figure it out. It's a lot of that. And again, my wife and I are kind of cut from that same cloth. And it's kind of what led to this business was, I had previous experience as an insurance agent. But then once we, really started looking into this based on some life experiences, again, we just figured it out on our own, doing a lot of research on our own. And it led us to opening this up last year.
So this is fascinating how you got started. So tell us a little bit more about the name you came up with, M1 Agency, and what exactly you specialize in.
So we focus on Social Security planning, Medicare, and annuities. We named it after Woodward, wanted to keep it logo. There is an agency, M1, that's an advertising agency downtown, but we're fine because we're in separate businesses. But named it after Woodward, wanted to keep it local. I know a lot of people think 75 is Michigan's Main Street. I think it's Woodward because I live right next to it. But also, too, it's the M is, Medicare, Michigan. That's where the name came from. But really, what led to this was my mother-in-law. She's in the James, who you recently had on. You recently had Kizzy and Cayenne on from the James. And she's there and she loves it. But previous to that, she had a heart attack and a stroke in the same year.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. Yeah. And to, add more to this, this was during 2020. This is going into the pandemic. So we had all the complications with that. So my wife, Lisa, she basically lived at Beaumont for a year and a half, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
During COVID, I might add.
During COVID, going in, not for COVID related stuff, for surgeries. And, again, we were there a lot. But I guess what we had found, what we discovered, and again, I had previous experience as an insurance agent. I worked for an insurance company at the time, and actually opening this was something I had been thinking of for years. What really led to it and what the defining thing was that when we started researching the bills and where everything, who pays for what, the order it gets paid for, and she had her affairs in order. Well, turned out not every affair was in order. There was a major blind spot, and it ended up, long and short, costing her $9,000 a month for 2 months in a recovery care facility. We're blown away. We thought Medicare covered that and this covered that. And just, the way that everything worked out, it led to a extreme amount of research and then ultimately led to opening this company. Because one thing I was saying just about being a feral Gen Xer, right? Did you guys ever spend any time, and I went to Catholic and public schools through my years. I never spent, other than maybe, a chapter on the New Deal, right? Any time focusing on Social Security at all?
No, we never learned it.
Never.
I was a history minor in college. I couldn't tell you anything about it.
There you go. Right. This isn't just our generation. It's all generations. But it's like, as life expectancies go on and on and on, you're expected to live 20, 25 years with, the bedrock of your retirement being Social Security and Medicare. And most of us have no clue going into it. And so, again, I just really wanted to make this a focus where as we start to age into it, and can you believe this? Adam Sandler in 3 years or 2 years is going to be Social Security eligible. Can you believe that?
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. So wait, let's back up for just a quick second, Jim.
Yeah.
When is the best time to really start learning about this? Because you're right, we're never taught this. And when do we need to know about this so that we're prepared when we enter that phase?
That's exactly what I tried to figure out as a business. So it's my belief that you really should start preparing for this, even like in your mid 40s, into your 50s. Okay. Because, that's when you start to realize, especially now, there's going to be a lot of job transitions. There's going to be a lot of changes when you start to realize like, oh, wow, okay, this is coming. This is a few years away.
Yeah.
Sure, I've got a 401k, I've got a Roth, I've got whatever, right? I've prepared some type of retirement account, but for what? We know it's for income, but like, what do I do with it once I've saved all this money? Also, too, we hear the myth a lot of Social Security is not going to be there for me. If you look at especially Gen X, it's sad. People just don't think it's going to be there at all. And then on top of that, less than 50%, especially in Gen X, less than 50% of us have any money saved up for retirement. And I mean like zero.
Wow.
Yeah. So where's it going to come from? How are we going to pay for this? And I'm just of the belief, I was raised by boomers. I love our boomer friends and relatives, right? But it's time like we have to learn from them. Again, I use Adam Sandler as the example because it really just like blows my mind. Like it's going to be happening soon and we're not going to be prepared. And that's my biggest fear. So I like to take a very Gen X approach to this as we age into this.
Well, and I think it's important to really note that the medical field has changed so much too. So like the generation before us, they may not have had to learn about this stuff or deal with it just because of the way it handled. Now it's getting not only so complicated, but so expensive.
Yep. The laws are now changing. There's a lot of stuff coming out of Washington where coverages are changing, and you're absolutely right. And that's where, again, we look to solutions to stretch people's dollar. One thing, just a little thing, like people think a lot of times, even we thought going through the process with my mother-in-law, certain things are just paid for through Medicare. Well, there's a lot of things that are not. And yeah, when those bills start showing up, that's where people, it's mind-boggling to think, and I talk to people all the time, we're going into the annual enrollment period where people just signed up for something because it had a bunch of zeros, right? And then they actually use it, the copays, whatever this, and then they actually use it, and all of a sudden they have a $4,500 bill.
Yikes.
Because they had to go to the hospital. So it's really just understanding, what am I signing up for? Why am I signing up for this? And making sure people are prepared for it, because Medicare is not free.
Do you offer classes on this?
We do. Yeah, I do.
Because I feel like there needs to be a degree to understand this.
Yep. And that's the thing. It's kind of understanding the basics. But yeah, I do some in-person stuff for Social Security and for Medicare specifically, because it's, again, two different approaches. And in fact, like one thing to understand about that we have to educate our clients on is that, Social Security, it's a spousal decision, right? It's a combined decision. It's something that you look at with your spouse or even with your ex-spouse, right? There's things that come into play on Social Security. Whereas Medicare, and we're all used to, not all of us, but a lot of us are, especially in Michigan, we're used to group plans, right? I was at Rocket for 15 years.
Sure.
I didn't look at what I was in my 20s and 30s. I didn't care. I just picked what was the lowest premium. I barely went to the doctor. I didn't care for all these years. It was myself and my wife when we were married. So it was a combined thing. And I was really going for, Lisa, what do you need? It wasn't even about me. It was about what she needed the most of. You get self-employment, completely different set of, right? It's a completely different way to look at healthcare. And then same thing with Medicare.
That resonates with our chamber members, that's for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. And same thing with Medicare. You have to then look at it very individually as opposed to you and your spouse. Some things are spousal. Most things are, though, you're on your own at this point. And then it's just kind of understanding that, figuring it out, making sure people understand there's a cost to it. On average in Michigan, even a healthy first-year Medicare recipient is going to spend about $3,700 on average between their Part B, between copays, between whatever else. So just understanding those things, that none of this stuff comes for free. And again, some pre-education as we get closer and closer so people can start to prepare for budgeting in retirement, right? That's why we offer annuities to start locking in that portion of the money that has to pay for healthcare premiums, property taxes, homeowners insurance, car insurance. You're not going to stop driving, especially in Michigan when you're 65. You're not going to stop. People are going to stay in their homes probably a lot longer than they used to. So yeah, just being prepared for those fixed costs in retirement and making sure people are ready to go when it hits and not a surprise.
A moment ago, Jim, Lisa asked you about, when we need to think about it for ourselves. You mentioned especially Gen X and older millennials now, that sandwich generation where we're often taking care of kids or parents, but especially our parents. We have to figure this out for them sometimes too.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the phrase Social Security optimization. That's something you're big on. I know we're starting to scratch the surface of that a moment ago, but what is Social Security optimization?
This is kind of heartbreaking to me. I talked to a lot of people that took Social Security at age 62, okay, because their buddy told them, you got to take it, it's going away. And they're still working in some cases. They maybe are just bouncing into the threshold where you're allowed to work and take Social Security. Long and short, it turns out it was a disastrous decision. Okay. And I also talked to a lot of people who, they might have $2 million in a 401k, but they're thinking about taking Social Security at age 65 because they just don't really know why. Like they don't want to dip into their 401k. Whereas it would make more sense potentially to hold it off until age 70 because you get more and use some of your 401k funds up front while the market's somehow still at record highs, right? Because at some point it's going to come down. And at that point, that's not when you want to draw from your 401k. You'd want to rely on Social Security. So John, long and short to answer, when we look at married couples especially, I just talked to someone yesterday. We confirmed based on, the wife's longevity, it would make sense for her to take it at 62 and then make sense for her husband to take it at 65. He was thinking he had to wait till 70. She thought she had to wait till 65, wanted to take it at 62 so she could work less hours. And that setup worked for them ideally. So it's a puzzle we're putting together with every individual client.
No, and I think that makes sense because just to your point, everything is individualized for each situation. And for those who don't know, the longer you wait to take Social Security, the higher your payout is monthly. So it may make sense to wait and get a higher payout, or depending on your financial situation, you may want to take it earlier because you need access to that money now just based on your situation.
And only about 8% of people actually optimize. And the people that don't, on average, leave about $111,000 on the table over their lifetime. It's a huge number that they just leave behind. Right. Of money that they earn,
Well, talking about leaving behind, there are a lot of breakups. And I caught briefly, you had mentioned something about you might need to talk with your ex. So if you're married and going through a divorce, why would you need to talk with your ex to set up Medicaid after the divorce has happened?
Not Medicaid, Social Security claiming.
The Social Security. This is how much I know. This is why we need you.
Exactly. That's why we're here. So a common situation you'll see is a couple in their 60s. They were married with kids in their 20s and 30s. They got divorced. They were married for 10 years. During that time, and I'm going to say the wife because that's mostly what we see and that's how the stats bear it out. The wife didn't work, okay? And then maybe worked after the kids went off to school, but, just barely worked, right? I can think of my aunt did this with 3 kids, just kind of, did part-time jobs, earned Social Security, but $500-$600 a month in retirement. The income would come from the spousal Social Security, okay, the spousal benefits, because that's where you get half of what the husband made. So it's a lot more, I guess is what I'm saying.
So after a divorce, you can still almost like kind of backtrack into your ex's Social Security, what they earned.
Correct, as long as you were married for 10 years. And those are a little bit more common in Michigan, actually, than other states. But you do see that here quite a bit. It's just little things that people don't know. So it's like, you don't have to work until you're 70 necessarily. There are ways, as long as we can go through and figure that out for you.
I want to put a finer point on this. I want to make sure I understand it correctly, Jim. So obviously your Social Security is calculated based on what you earned in your working years, and you can even go online right now and check on it. But if during a significant time of your quote unquote working age years, you were married, you were a stay-at-home mom, you were a stay-at-home dad, and your spouse is bringing in the income, that can be calculated into what you would earn in Social Security because it's not based on your current marital status. It's based on the marital status of your earning years. Do I have that right?
As long as you were married for 10 years to that person.
Okay.
Yep. Correct.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yep. That's where that kicks in. And yeah, some people are just completely unaware of that, and it could actually boost their benefit quite a bit.
Jim, this has been really informative and educational, and I feel like we could talk to you all day because this stuff is so important, and a lot of folks, myself included, just don't know a lot about it.
Yeah.
I want to give you an opportunity to do what you call a minute or an M1 minute, depending on how you want to stylize the font. You know, you do this daily on your social media, localizing news stories about annuities, Social Security, Medicare, and the importance for Gen X to be ready. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Give us, doesn't have to be exactly a minute, but ballpark a minute of an important piece of information.
Okay, so a current piece of information, specifically with Social Security, we heard a lot about the bill coming out of Washington. I don't care what people call it, but the big bill coming out of Washington. And a lot of the things that we heard was about no taxes on Social Security. That's not true. There is a $6,000 tax credit that lifts a limit that's good until 2028. So again, you'll see when I put that minute out every day, it's a lot of articles that other people are seeing. And my take is, look, people are saying this. They're asking me when I talk to clients, right? So let's put the Michigan spin on that article and let's start to decipher what's real out there, what's not. You know, people, especially politicians, they're going to tweet the highlights and they leave out a lot of the lowlights, right? So it's, getting into the weeds on that. And then also working with clients individually to figure out, okay, does this affect me? Does this make sense to me? But that's a big one, John, that we see a lot right now that I'm getting questions on.
So what you're saying is just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Correct. Yeah. You got to get into government websites to really, into the PDF file, right? When you're clicking to figure out, all right, what's really true here? 100%.
So, Jim, you are also a Royal Oak Chamber member, and John and I absolutely love everyone in this group. How long have you been a member for?
Only for a couple months. I'm new.
Oh, welcome.
New to the chamber. In fact, when I worked with Christine Perez to sign up, I told her, look, my fall this is our busy time, October, November, December for this industry. But I told her, by joining this, you have to force me to get to these events. And it's a way to really force myself to interact and network with the community. And I've gone to a few events so far and am really looking forward. Went to the Vibe Credit Union's ribbon cutting, which was a good one because actually we work with them as well.
Great.
In fact, as soon as I opened this, my number one thing was joining the chamber. Because again, it's a great community. There's great events. Royal Oak Chamber, it's so organized. Plus the other opportunity, the thing with the Troy Chamber recently and the other chambers around the state, because we work statewide. We tend to focus, mostly just because of where we're located in the Detroit area. But yeah, we work statewide and have the opportunity to work with other chambers around the state is awesome too. So far, I've been very, very impressed.
Well, depending on whether you're a morning person or you like your happy hours, the Royal Oak Chamber offers really great coffees as well as happy hours. So definitely get involved and check it out. It's one of the most involved chambers that I've ever been to events with.
Agreed.
And the people are absolutely amazing.
Yep. I've noticed that. I've noticed it. It's great. It's great at those events.
And I completely hear you what you said a minute ago, Jim. Sometimes it's my natural temptation as a business owner, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners, to sit here and plow through my to-do list and the work in front of me. But every time I force myself to turn the computer off and get up and go to one of these events and meet people, I get energy from it. I'm just energized by interacting with other business owners. So your point is certainly well taken.
I'm with you. I was a mortgage guy forever. An insurance agent, then a mortgage guy, then back to insurance. And you just, especially with rates being so low for so long, again, I was dedicated. I got stuff done. I was really great taskmaster and checking those boxes off. But then it's like, it's 4:00. I haven't talked to an actual, not to say actual human, but talk to a human about something other than just numbers for hours and hours. And that's something as I've grown here, I've, grown in business. It's so important. The soft skills are so important, right? And just making sure that you are getting out and being a part of the community. So again, joining the chamber just really facilitates that in a much easier way. It sets it up for you. So that way you don't have to think about, filling your calendar as much, and making sure that these events happen.
Well, as much as we need our mortgage lenders, I am so grateful that you have taken on Medicare and Social Security because you are the perfect personality to educate all of us and also make it fun. Like, it sounds like very detailed information that we all need to know. So I hope everybody does call you and can find this out. We're going to actually take a moment right now, and we are going to do our Fishbowl question of the day, where we ask you a totally random question. John.
This is probably not going to take you by surprise because you mentioned you listened to some previous episodes, so you know you knew ahead of time we were going to do this. Okay.
Yeah. It's wide ranging though, so I don't know how prepared I am, but let's see.
Okay, here's today's Fishbowl question. What is one piece of advice, some point in your life, you wish you'd seriously taken?
I wish I would have moved out of state earlier and then come back when I did. When I was basically broke and, just in my early 20s and had more of an opportunity because I never was going to leave the state permanently. Mm-hmm. I did live in New York for a couple of years when I was 29, 30, and 31, but I wish I had done that at age 22. And I would say to anyone, Michigan is, in my opinion, it's hands down my favorite state, but like all of us, it's good to get away from the winters, to get away from whatever, and just get out there, go to California, go to wherever to experience something different, a different place. Because I think it helps you appreciate it, especially if you want to come back. It helps you appreciate it more, appreciate what we really have here and how great of a state we have. That's the thing I wish I would have done it at age 22, come back at age 24, 25, and then stayed the whole time. I feel like I did it a little bit late and might have missed out on something. I don't know what, but, missed out on something.
I think everybody should do that right out of high school. Go travel for a year or two before you jump back into college and really determine what you're going to be spending thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on your education for. But get that travel kind of out of the way, because also you have your health. And people don't think about that. A lot of times people are like, oh, we're going to wait and do our travel once we retire. But by then, your body's a little hurting, and you might not be able to do those hikes.
They say you don't want to be waiting for Social Security, Medicare. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, I am a total agreement with that. Take that advantage. Do the traveling while you can, so that way you can settle down and really decide on what you want to do with your life.
Absolutely.
I know, Lisa, you've lived in multiple places. I've lived in the Northeast. I grew up in the Northeast, came here, lived in New Orleans for a couple of years, came back in. I just feel like you'll have different perspectives if you've lived in different places as opposed to one place your entire life. Or that one place is Michigan, California, New York, Florida. Just having that different perspective, I think, is really, really helpful.
Yeah, and different mindset, different beliefs. Even if you choose not to adopt them, it's good to kind of get yourself around some different ways of thinking. So, yeah, big fan.
Absolutely.
All right, Jim, before we let you go, and again, you've given us such great information today. If folks want to contact you with the M1 Agency, what are the best ways to reach you?
TheM1Agency.com is our website. I'm very active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and we have a YouTube channel as well. But any of those, that's where I do put that daily minute out to give an update. And again, just try to make everything, take national articles, national points of view, make them local. And how does this really affect people in Michigan? So yeah, we stay very active. Please find us anywhere. And any of the links within there, there's spots to set up consultations. If it's local, I love meeting in person, as much as I can. We have an office in Bloomfield. Today I'm working out of my home office in Huntington Woods, but I'll meet anywhere local that is in southeastern Michigan if time allows. But yeah, a lot of this stuff we can do over the phone, and then we can meet local if we have a solution for you.
Terrific.
Well, thank you so much for explaining all about Medicare and Social Security. So I know there's a whole lot more to unpack. My name is Lisa Bibby, and I'm a realtor with Century 21 Northland. I put the real back in realtor. We want you to love where you live. Questions about buying or selling your home? Call my cell 248-981-3610. My website is soldbylisab.com, and you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at soldbylisa.b. Let's connect.
And I am John Gay from Jag Podcast Productions. If you have any questions about podcasts, starting a podcast, improving your podcast, podcasting in general, you can find me at jagpodcastproductions.com. I'm also on social media at Jag Podcast Productions. Would love to connect with you. We want to thank you for listening to this episode of the ROCC Pod. It is produced for the Royal Oak, Michigan Chamber of Commerce. For more information about the Chamber, Chamber events, how to join, and more, you can visit royaloakchamber.com. Thanks, everyone.